Thanks for joining. Good afternoon, everyone.
Thanks for conducting a session on Guerreiro.
Huh? Okay, thank you. Yeah, it's the last session, so maybe you are a bit tired and so on, but let's see. I'll try to make it not as much not boring as possible. Yeah. Okay, so I'll talk a bit about some insights and learnings from. Huh? No, that's a logo. I didn't say it. It's just written, so it doesn't count. Yeah, some insights, learnings from a year working in close to the recruitment industry. So a quick intro just about myself. So I'm Gonçalo. Some of you already talked to me during the event, but for the ones who didn't, nice to meet you. I am from Lisbon originally, and I'm living there now after graduating from Intech. I was from the first batch of the Intech, finished in 2014. I did Lisbon, Karlsruhe, and now back to Lisbon. And currently I'm working at Landing Jobs, which is, I will talk a bit about it later, just to give some detail, but yeah, that's how I got in touch with recruitment and all of this. So first, why this talk? You were already thanking for having a talk, something related to careers and recruitment, and this is kind of why I decided to do this, because in every event that I attended before, it's always a topic, everyone's talking about it, because of course everyone is concerned about it, like either after you finishing studies or because you are shifting jobs. Everyone will do it several times during life, hopefully, so it's part of it. So I came up with this idea because I was working in the industry and I thought, okay, let's try to share something that may be useful. I can't promise how useful it will be, but my hopes is that at least with some questions afterwards in the end, you can learn something from the presentation. I will split it into parts. So first I will just go through some insights, like going through a normal recruitment process and share some things that we do at Landing Jobs, like how to make it better, like some common problems, and also basically just explain why there are so many problems in certain stages. And then afterwards, I will just share like 6 learnings that I thought, looking back 1 year, I thought, okay, these are the things that I think were the core learnings for me personally, and I think they can be useful also, so I will go through it. So first, Landing Jobs. The premise that started Landing Jobs is very easy. So recruitment in general sucks. The experience is not pleasant for the companies looking for people. It's not pleasant for people applying to jobs, because there are lacks of communication, not a proper follow-up when you apply to jobs, not proper feedback, lots of spam, and particularly in tech, because Landing Jobs is operating like mostly for IT people and people working in tech positions. That's another problem. There's at least a perceived shortage of people to fulfill the jobs that exist out there. So all of this combined created like the premise to Landing Jobs. So our idea is that we have careers marketplace. You apply to jobs. It's just like a job board. You go there and apply. But we got your back. So our idea is that we carry you and try to support as long as possible during the recruitment process. So this means giving feedback, giving support, like, is the offer good? Is the company working properly? We have no problems in saying, hey, don't go for that company because it sucks for what you are willing to do. And this is what we try to make difference. So like from a user perspective, it's super simple. You just create a profile, apply to a job, and then successful landing if everything goes accordingly. But yeah, the core thing here is that the follow-up that we give throughout the process. And why does Landing Jobs empower, like the credibility that Landing Jobs gives me to give this talk? It's because we are working with startups and big companies a bit from across Europe. Right now, Germany, UK, Spain, and Portugal. It's tech, so it's not exactly the type of companies that most of you are going to apply to, but the core things are pretty much the same in every sector. So that's why I'm sharing this. Yeah, so I'll start with some insights of the recruitment process. So normally, this is how a typical recruitment process goes. A company decides that they want to hire someone. They need to specify it. So they try to define the profile they're looking for. Then they need to get candidates, of course, which in some areas, and as I said before, it's not a problem. It's a huge problem in tech. But basically, you need to spread your job offers around to get someone to join your company. Then it's like a bit matching like Tinder. You screen, you are screening, then it's yes, no, maybe, And they start seeing people, they assess skill assessment and then interviews and interviews, because it's common to have like several interviews until the end. I'll just go through each stage and then showing a bit some things. So the first way, the hiring need is a bit easier, but basically when companies hire, it's because there are several factors that can cause it, but mostly it is either there's the executive decision saying, okay, we are going to double our team to 20, we are going to hire 20 people, and then someone needs to make it happen, and then our recruiters and engineers trying to hire someone. There is the example on you have a problem in a company, you don't have anyone with the expertise to solve it, and then you need someone that's very, very good at this area, so you need to hire someone for that. Or basically you need some more workforce to, like one more person to help you doing what you're doing. So this one is kind of straightforward. But then how to come up with job descriptions. Here is where problems start happening in most recruitment processes and the companies, because for example, there can be hiring managers and recruiters copying pasting specs from several jobs that they published, and then in the end the result is not. It's a bit strange. It either has super demanding requirements, or it depicts someone that doesn't really exist. Or they just start listing all the skills that a perfect person should have, and also there are 2 people in the world, or 3, that fit the requirements, and they are not going to find it. And yeah, that's a bit how it works. In landing jobs, we try a bit to correct that. So every company that posts jobs in our platform, we go through it and to correct the job offers and say, hey, look, this is impossible. So let's switch the requirements a bit. So this is where some problems start happening. After this, the companies start attracting candidates. And how do they do it? Normally, they spread job offers to as many channels as possible. And then this creates the pain that most of you have felt for sure, that you apply to jobs and then there's no reply. Because, well, they hire someone, they forget to close the positions, they decide they don't need someone, but they forgot to close the positions, or they just have too many channels and they are not able to follow up with everyone. So this is also a problem, but yeah, in candidate attraction, because companies normally go through this process and then they don't manage to follow up with everything. So there's actually a huge market of tools showing up for solving this, like tools that allow companies to post everywhere and then receive everything centralized and then follow up with everyone together. Also in landing jobs, we make sure that everyone replies to the feedback. We're always calling, hey, you have people waiting for a week, please tell them something, and these kind of things. And then, are we a match? And companies also fail a bit on this, in this part. It happened, for example, that in one company I was working with, they rejected the guy, and then I had to call because I didn't understand why. It didn't make any sense. I said, hey, you are rejecting this guy that fits all the requirements. Is there a specific reason? And they said, no, maybe let's interview them. And in the end, they hired the guy. So also, the initial judgments. No, but the judgments they make, sometimes they are not 100% trustable. Of course, every company strives or fights to be as accurate as possible, but in the end, there are humans or algorithms that are not so smart afterwards, these algorithms, or humans that are prone to error. We all are. So this is the next stage. And then skill assessment, it's like normal in every process. You'd be dumb to assume that no one is going to check your skills, like in every recruitment process they will. It makes sense. If I'm hiring someone to work with me, I need to know that they can deliver what they are promising. And yeah, the only problem here that I want to mention, I think none of you will have that at the moment, but some people have in the end that they are full of themselves to a point they say, okay, I'm good enough, I'm too good to do skill assessment tests, which is also, it's not the correct mindset, because yeah, you can have 10 years of experience, but you need to show it to us. Then interviews, normally there are several stages of interviews. Things here normally don't have many problems, apart from companies trying to squeeze too many things in one single day, and then they are interviewing for 6 hours, which is not very productive. But a good practice in this case is that normally companies just want to know you. Not like there's a lot of bad advice about interviews, but normally they just want to know you and meet you in person, put you to talk with as many people as possible that you are of your future colleagues to see if, yeah, it's better to find out that before than after having just one call, you start working and you say, okay, we don't get along. Yeah, so final stage interviews. Okay, now I'll just go through some learnings and some things that I considered was like the biggest learnings for me of this year and a bit before also when I was applying to jobs. The first one, and this happens a lot, is like be picky. And it's very easy for us to go into desperation of, okay, I don't find a job, I just need something to stay in Europe. Okay, or to stay in my country, or to stay in Germany, or to go back to here. It's normal. Every one of us have these concerns. But specifically when it's regarding your personal interest and so on, the thing that I think we should be picky. For example, personally, I would prefer, instead of doing some engineering job that I really didn't like, I would prefer to be waiting tables or being being a tourist guide while I was searching for something than just go to a company that I didn't really believe in. And it's also common, and it happened to me also, like people trying to offer you a job like without much talking, which is suspicious sometimes. And because in the end, in my case, they didn't really know what they wanted me to do. And I was inexperienced, so that's kind of suspicious, and it's again a confirmation should be picky. If someone wants to hire you and they don't even know for what, maybe we shouldn't say yes. Next one, it's again, but don't think too much. We tend to overthink a bit on how to, if I take this step now, how it will change like my next decisions and so on. But guess what? Actually, by enrolling in one of the masters we did, we already made a decision and some constraints for the future. It's part of everything we do, but normally it's not limiting. It just creates some other opportunities different than the ones you closed. But one thing is to try to go to the right thing or what feels right at the moment. But like if you overthink, we wouldn't do anything in life. And I saw some people at landing jobs also rejecting offers because of overthinking that were perfect. Then they regret in the end. But so another learning for me was this of not overthinking. The third one, it's advice filtering. There's like lots of terrible advice, especially on the internet. There's lots of good one as well, fortunately. But yeah, there are lots of things that are simply not real about most job interviews and recruitment processes. Like these very common ones are regarding CVs and the pages that they need to have and so on, regarding interview behaviors or regarding following up after interviews. Most of it doesn't really matter. You should do what feels right for you as a person like that knows how to interact with the others afterwards. Key things is filter it according to what you are going for. Of course, if you are going to interview to a big bank, maybe you should wear a suit, but probably not. Or, yeah, it really depends. But there's so much things that it requires a lot of effort of filtering everything. But this is a valuable advice for me. For me, it was at least. Then understand your possible paths, and this goes in line a bit of, don't think too much, but you need to be aware of like what limitations are you going to have in the future by some choices that you made today. It's normal. But you can have like a tree of several possible options for the future. So yeah, for example, a co-founder of landing jobs usually says that there are like several ways of progressing in career, but we can either climb a bit, then stabilize and do different things, then you switch your industry or area, you stay at the same level, you maybe sacrifice for change, or you can just be always climbing. But normally the people that are always climbing end up having a plateau later in life normally, and it's more difficult. So don't be afraid of having current limitations or, for example, being stuck in something very similar in parallel positions at the same time, because that's how it works. It's not a problem. We have plenty of time in front of us. And this is something that was confirmed also by all the people I spoke with and the people during my year at landing jobs. Like there are so many career opportunities and career paths that exist. I saw people shifting from baking to developing software, and the other way around, people going from engineering to just traveling. Okay, everything is a possibility. Just be aware of it when doing the changes. And yeah, and also for myself, like I was doing engineering and then now I'm working in recruitment for a year. It's not something that I want to do the recruitment industry forever, but like at this stage it feels right. And yeah, I just need to be aware of it, the limitations it will bring. Then this is something that Dimitri was already talking and you probably noticed already, but network is super important. It doesn't replace real skills, but it's like a safety net for everything that you can do. I had, for example, some months ago, I was interested in a job at a company in London. I had a friend working there, so I just asked him, and he told me, okay, no, this position is not great for you because we are looking for something a bit different. But then I got that, and I avoided the time and the effort of making an application, going through waiting and everything else. And normally, yeah, basically a good network can help you in anything, especially in career, but not only. And this is advice that I confirm also from all the companies and clients I'm working with. It's a very small world. Someone is in a company one day, you might have a good connection, and 3 days after 3 months after they are somewhere else, and they can have an impact. You never know, like when the positive impact you made will be helpful for you in the future. If it doesn't, it's fine anyway. You helped someone, but network is super important. And then 6 is just ask. Sometimes we made lots of assumptions regarding what is it going to be, or how should something be, and then, or am I good for this, I'm not good for this. Just ask a question. Some people always ask me about, for example, dress codes to interviews. It's fine. I ask that myself. It's better asking, oh, what's the dress code, than showing up in a suit when everyone is wearing shorts. So, or for example, there's a company that you really admire and you want to work for them, and then they don't have any position. Well, just found someone and send an email asking if it makes sense or not for you to work there in the future. The worst you can get is a no or a no reply, but yeah, but maybe you are missing out on something if you don't ask questions. Finally, yeah, this is it. So now it's your turn, like shoot some questions of anything that you're curious about, either about landing jobs, about something I mentioned, anything. Thank you.
My question is about, there are, almost all the projects are software development and maybe product management. Yeah. So is there any tendency of adding more fields, maybe energy-related fields?
For now, no, because what the driver for a company to pay for someone externally, like the landing jobs, like in a revenue model, it's like a recruitment agency from a company that's using us. And the driver for them to use it, it's to have a really huge need for hiring. And that's why we ended up shifting into tech, because it's the only one of the few fields where it happens. Because in other fields like marketing, even other fields of engineering, you post a job position and then you get 200, 300 applications. So companies don't want to use anyone externally because they don't feel the pain to hire someone.
Okay.
So it's like purely business. For now, we are staying in this field. Like we would like to reach to other countries and other areas, of course, but that's depending on the success in the future.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was wondering, because you talk about how you can steer and then maybe go from one thing to another. I mean, we're in a changing time, so now you don't have to work for 40 years for the same company and everything. But I would like to know if, I don't know if you have enough experience in this or you have talked with people and everything. Like a hiring person, what do they think if you make changes, several changes? Like how often is it kind of okay? And also, like, what if an engineer wants to go to banking? Will they find it weird, or if as long as he can prove in the CV and cover letter that he has the soft skills and that's why he wants to change? Like, how is this?
Depends on the position, depends on the hiring manager or recruiter, and also it depends on how many changes it did. So how many changes, I mean, if you are changing job every 6 months, it will raise a suspicion to anyone. Why, is this guy doesn't know what he wants, or he is just jumping around because no one likes him at the workplace? So if it's too often, it will raise suspicions. Even if you did everything right and it just happened, it can be a difficulty. It depends on the company because, for example, banking and some consultancy companies, they don't care where you come from as long as you prove that they are good. Some startups don't really care. Also, as long as you can prove that you can do the work. But it really depends on the company. Some companies and the people working there, if they are small ones, they are just a bit close and they say, I want exactly this person with this background, and then you have no chance. But there are more companies out there. And depends on the hiring person, because sometimes they are not really into the field, or they don't know enough of the field that you are applying to judge, and then they discard you because you are not a typical applicant, but even though you can be good. And sometimes they can see this. So of course, it can fail anyway, but there are enough success cases to say that this is possible.
Thanks.
Anand, can you question?
Do you think nationality also plays a major role in selecting a candidate?
Sometimes, yeah. Even though legally everyone says no, it happens. Because someone had bad experiences with people from a certain nationality, because everyone has a different culture and different rates. If it doesn't apply, it's not a common ground, but no. Because you're looking, I'm looking at everyone. But everyone, no, but sometimes it plays a role. And nationalities also play a role in these bad experiences, and then also in terms of documentation. If you need someone to visit, if the company decides, okay, I need everyone to visit me, sometimes they kind of create a radius and say everyone further than this I won't talk to, because it's a hassle to have them for an interview, it's too expensive. It really depends on the culture, but yeah, there's some nationality, and also continent plays a role in that sometimes.
What is the role of these softwares that analyze words on the CV?
Normally, it's try to exclude applicants without human effort. Normally, they fail many times also. That's the thing. No, because they are just looking for keywords, and you can basically trick them. If you read a bit into it, you can make a CV that's proof to all of these systems, even though you may not be the great person for it.
How do you trick it?
No, it's just, I don't know. I never used any of these systems, but when I was looking for jobs, I remember I was reading, especially in big banks and investment firms, they have a tendency to use these and look for specific keywords on the CVs. So you need to have a document that's readable, no words on images, and then have some keywords. There was a trick, for example, even having keywords in white text, so they are not visible, but to fool the systems. I think these systems are a bit. Yeah.
I got my way through initial system now. Wow.
Yeah, it's I think these systems are not great, and we don't use anything like that at landing jobs, just matching for the profiles and so on. But since it's a reality that they are used, maybe it's something you can investigate on, just to be foolproof to this first test.
But how do recruiters tend to react if they find out that you did this?
I don't think they will find out. I don't know. I never used any system, so don't trust me too much on this, but I research a bit on the topic of automatic screening.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, but are companies using this a lot today? Or?
Especially when they have too many applicants, they have 1,000 applicants for one position, yes, they use it to exclude at least half of them to reduce the human time analyzing applications. Questions there?
Thank you. So can you tell your story how you get this job, as an engineer, into HR? And if you're an engineer and you want to do marketing and stuff like that, how do you convince people? Do you have any track record in that, just a side project or something?
I can tell you how I got to landing jobs. So after I graduated in EnTech, I was looking for jobs and applying to mostly graduate programs and internships around Europe. Then I got an internship at ABB, and I was doing research and development for 3 months in the research center in Poland. And it was a very nice experience, but then I actually realized that doing research and development and this kind of hardcore engineering for long term, it was not really my thing. I wanted something more hybrid, because that's actually why I chose a master's that had a bit of engineering and entrepreneurship mixed. So my plan after that was going back to Lisbon for the summers and continue applying to jobs. But I knew that the startup scene there was booming, and I thought, okay, let's work for the summer for one of these companies. So I chose landing jobs because I had founded them accidentally when I was looking for jobs. And I kind of respected what they were doing and thought, okay, it's the best way to know the ecosystem is to work on a company that's connected to everyone in the city. So then I sent them an email and went there for an internship. My plan was to stay there for 3 months only, so until September. for June to September, and they accepted me after talking to 3 or 4 people because I didn't reach the right person in the first place, so hence the just ask thing. Yeah, and then after the 3 months, I just stopped. I was a bit disappointed with some recruitment processes. I didn't really like the companies I was going to for interviews to, and I just decided to stay longer there. I'm not sure for how long I will be, but like at this stage, I thought 1 year and all this 1 year and a half, almost that I'm there. It was perfect to learn a lot about growing a company and like seeing the company evolving from like 10 people to 30 now. All the challenges that it poses, also growing to other markets, and that's how I ended up in recruitment. My main drive was to be in the middle of the startup scene in Lisbon and Europe to see everything that was happening. And then I ended up doing recruitment as a side thing in the company, and I actually liked it more than I was expecting. It's still something that I don't want to do for 10 years, but for now it feels right. That's how I got into landing jobs.
Thank you. One question.
Yeah.
So, do you think that if a person has worked and dedicated his or her life in another sector, like maybe he has worked on sports or on arts, does the company will see it as a bad thing?
It's not a bad thing as long as you can prove that you can solve the challenge they have, because any company when hiring, they need someone to solve a specific issue. So for example, you could do arts, but then you had some side projects on something else that was our passion also, and with that you develop the skills needed to the job that you are applying to. But you need to prove that you are capable of doing the job for most of the positions, unless it's like training or entry level. But if you can do that in the CV and the application or talking with the person, most people will be okay with that.
Okay, thank you.
Here, in front.
Well, from my impression so far is that to get an interview, 90% of the time, it really helps to have a network. But what happens when you don't know anybody in the company and you really want this job? Would you have any recommendations of how to get it? Because you find, as you said, a lot of stuff in the internet. Call them, mail them, be a stalker. Like in your own experience, what would you recommend?
Everything.
Everything.
Try everything. Honestly, it's like the first thing that comes to my mind because there's not a certain formula.
Okay.
Because in some companies it will work if you just write to someone directly. In others they will just ignore you like they ignore all the other emails. Exactly. Like I said with the filtering system, sometimes they're automatic, sometimes it's human. So basically you need to be bulletproof to any of these and just try everything. So like have a good CV that explains what you want to do and what you are capable to do. At least make it foolproof to the automatic triaging systems. Start adding people on LinkedIn that do something that like you are doing, that you would like to do, for example, or some similar background, and just ask them if they have some time for some advice. Or just approach them, what would it take for me to be able to work at your company? Just try everything.
Okay,
yeah.
And just some curiosity I always have, do people really read your cover letters, or is just not worth to put that much effort? Because sometimes I feel like I spend hours working on these cover letters, and I'm always feeling, is this people really reading them, and do they play a role in if they are going to give you the job or not?
Yeah. I can tell the answer that it's valid for that in every area. So for example, in the area I'm working on, in the IT recruitment, they don't care about it. Even if the CV is ugly, they don't care as long as the person has the skills. But mostly, from what I got and heard from many recruiters, cover letters are not big cover letters with these standard structures are not very important, because normally if you follow most of the cover letter advice, they don't say much. So it's better if you have 2 or 3 sentences or a paragraph, 2 or 1 paragraph just saying exactly why you are applying to this, and then let them figure out everything in the CV, have your story on the CV basically. Normally it's a bit better, but for example, I remember applying to some jobs that the cover letter was mandatory, even if I was feeling that no one was going to read it. So my answer is not valid for all the others because I don't know about it, but that's my perception.
I have one more question. In some cases when I was applying to the job, I was trying somehow to overrun the HR department and find in LinkedIn the project manager of the company or the team where the job position is, and write a direct message to these guys. So you think this approach is correct, or it is somehow impolite, or
no? If you are not too pushy on the approach, normally, like, it depends on how's the time on the person and how willing they will be to reply to you. It also depends on the way you write it. Like, I'm not sure if you're in the talk with Dimitris, but like, if you are cold approaching someone, you need to have a set of rules, and this is valid for that. So sometimes they might say, okay, nice, but just apply to the HR, and then you do it. But I don't think you have much to lose unless you are a real stalker and you become you become a pain in the ass for the person you are contacting. I think there's no harm in trying it.
Thank you.
I know where you live.
Anything else? So that's it, I guess. That wraps it up. Thank you for joining.